amazing.
You watch New Year's?
Yeah, actually, every year almost. I saw it and I see how the people is happy and celebrate. And I think that the next year I will be here.
Next New Year you might be here.
I think so.
That's
yeah,
not a bad
I was
idea.
bringing my kids when I just feel it.
Well, it's America, so you can do whatever you want, wherever you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Free man, free country.
Free man in a free country. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we fought for.
It was a great day. Juxtapose our day seeing the Statue of Liberty with what happened the next day with those protests. Just seeing someone who came here the right way, legal immigration, so grateful to be in this country and has such strong allegiance to the U.S., putting his kids, all speak English, all 5 of them down in Houston. They're an amazing family. Welcome to America, Bacher. We are so happy to have you here. And that's all the time we have tonight. I'm Pete Hegseth in for Laura Ingraham. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and @Pete Hegseth. I will be back in this seat, for better or for worse, tomorrow evening, not morning. Until then, Ed Henry is filling in for Shannon Bream tonight. Ed, we've done a few mornings together, but
Pete,
it's good to see you at night.
I'm not used to seeing you at night. It's usually 6 a.m. on Fox and Friends Week. Just learning about a tragic development in Thailand, the rescue mission for those trapped boys and their soccer coach. We'll have more on that in just a moment. Meanwhile, President Trump back here at home on offense at a freewheeling campaign-style rally in what FoxNews.com has quickly dubbed the Montana Melee. While the left is charging, he went off the rails. The president with choice words for everyone from Maxine Waters to Elizabeth Warren, taking aim at FBI agent Peter Strzok on the day we learned Special Counsel Robert Mueller is hiring even more prosecutors. Plus, the president attacking Hillary Clinton and basically the entire Democratic Party, charging they created a Russian ruse because, quote, they got their asses kicked in 2016. And he didn't stop there, calling the woman who climbed the Statue of Liberty yesterday a clown. A woman, by the way, who says she was inspired by Michelle Obama. We'll get into that. Plus, the president's already shortlist for the next Supreme Court justice. Today, it got a little shorter ahead of Monday's big reveal. We have the late-breaking details. And America's top diplomat is en route to North Korea right now, where he plans to demand details on Kim Jong-un's promise to denuclearize, a promise that appears to be getting shaky. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is landing soon. We are tracking his every move. Hello, and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Ed Henry, in again for Shannon and the Bream team. We also have breaking news tonight on Scott Pruitt, the president's EPA administrator, who abruptly resigned today, citing unrelenting personal attacks on himself and his family. The president praised him for accomplishing a lot for the economy by stripping environmental regulations. But Pruitt's tenure had also been engulfed by a string of controversies about his security, his spending habits, including allegations from a pro-Trump whistleblower, and also that interview I did with the administrator a couple months back. President Trump said he would drain the swamp. Is draining the swamp renting an apartment from the wife of a Washington lobbyist?
I don't think that that's even remotely fair to ask that question.
I've basically lost my whole career, something that I've worked 20 years for. I was one of the president's first advanced guys. I just couldn't put up with it anymore. I love this administration. I love the president. But Scott Pruitt, I mean, everything I witnessed, I couldn't be a part of anymore.
Our correspondent Dan Springer is live in Montana, where the president just wrapped up that wild campaign rally. It was supposed to be focused on a big Senate battle, but it seemed to morph into a lot more. Good evening, Dan.
Yeah, hi, Ed. This was a long hour and 15-minute campaign-style rally the president had here in Great Falls, Montana, and he went after, as you said, a host of Democrats. He did not make mention of EPA Director Secretary Scott Pruitt's resignation today. However, he was asked about that in a press gaggle just before the rally, and in that gaggle he said, quote, "There was no final straw. Scott is a terrific guy. He came to me and said, look, I have such great confidence in the administration. I don't want to be a distraction." Clearly, he was a distraction in recent weeks. It was a packed arena here in Great Falls, 6,000 capacity, and many more could not get in. Trump was here campaigning for Matt Rosendale, who was running against Democratic Senator John Tester. Trump attacked Tester for a good 10 minutes, I'd say, today, but also he went after, well, some familiar foes.
She is a low IQ individual, Maxine Waters. I said it the other day. I mean, honestly, she's somewhere in the mid-60s, I believe that. Pocahontas, I apologize to you. I apologize. To you, I apologize. To the fake Pocahontas, I won't apologize. A vote for the Democrats in November is a vote to let MS-13 run wild in our communities, to let drugs pour into our cities, and to take jobs and benefits away from our hardworking Americans. Get your ass out to vote. Is that okay? Get your ass out to vote. Vote for Matt. They're going to say, oh, that was not presidential.
Matt Rosendale is getting a lot of support from the Trump family and big conservative PACs across the country that have spent over $5 million so far. Donald Trump Jr. has been to Montana a couple times already, and he was here today and is promising to come back for more trips. Clearly, this is a race that is personal for President Trump, but a poll done just in mid-June shows that John Tester still has a lead in the polls here. He has already won 2 elections in Montana, a very red state, but one that will vote for Democrats for Congress and also for the governor's office. He has an 8-point lead over Rosendale, and this is in a state, Ed, that Trump won by 20 points just 2 years ago. Ed?
Probably wants to lobby Senator Tester about a potential Supreme Court nominee as well. Dan Springer, appreciate the reporting tonight. Another big story. Special Counsel Robert Mueller is reportedly deploying even more manpower to help him in the Russia investigation. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, is looking into what it might mean for the probe. Good evening, Catherine.
And a source close to the process confirmed to Fox News that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is making more use of Justice Department lawyers as well as U.S. attorneys. The source said they believe the expanded team is an indicator Mueller is farming out cases that are not directly related to the Russia collusion probe. Critics of the special counsel point to former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who is facing trials in Washington, D.C. and Virginia on allegations of money laundering and tax fraud that predate the presidential election. The president's former personal attorney Michael Cohen is under investigation by New York's Public Corruption Unit, from Cohen's business interests to the $130,000 payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. The Southern District of New York, known by the shorthand SDNY, is in the lead.
It could be that they're spinning off more cases like they did in the Southern District of New York, that they've found different things. They're ready to indict certain cases, but they're not cases that go directly to the Trump-Russia collusion. And so they're dragging in, the local prosecutors to essentially run those cases because they'll be going along after the special counsel is shut down.
A spokesman for the special counsel, Robert Mueller, declined to comment on staffing. Mueller's team will be in a D.C. court Tuesday for a rare public status hearing about the delayed sentencing of former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn for lying to federal investigators. Ed?
Thank you, Catherine. President Trump also taking some shots at the DOJ in his freewheeling campaign event tonight, starting with those remarks directed at his campaign rival, Hillary Clinton.
She gets special treatment under the Justice Department. After spending $22 million, it's awfully tough. And the House just left and they said there's no collusion. Can you imagine this? It's all a ruse. This was an excuse for the Democrats who lost an election, who actually got their ass kicked.
Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President George W. Bush, Tom Dupree, joins us live with the reaction tonight. Keep it clean, Tom.
I'll do my best.
All right. Now, first of all, the $22 million the president talked about sounds like he's referring, first of all, to the budget of Robert Mueller. And the White House is getting frustrated that this thing's still going on.
They are. And look, the president has been beating this drum for a long time. And I think his remarks this evening in Montana show that he is going to keep beating this drum up until and possibly through the midterm elections. He has been getting some traction with this. If you look at the poll numbers and people's confidence in the Mueller investigation started off at a reasonably high level and has been dropping, which suggests to me at least that the president's constant harping on this theme is starting to resonate with voters.
Is it just harping? Is it just politics from the president? Or is there a legitimate beef that some weeks ago he and his allies were saying, all right, we've had a year, back in May, I believe, that the Mueller investigation has been around. Put up or shut up, basically. Let's see what you got. And now we hear he's not winding down. He's adding more prosecutors.
Yeah, well, I think what today's developments show is that the Mueller investigation is broadening, as independent counsel investigations invariably do. And if you think about it, Mueller right now has got a whole bunch of different battles, different fronts that he's fighting on. He's got people in different states, different types of investigations, different targets. So it doesn't surprise me.
Financial crimes, obstruction of different possibilities.
Different types of crimes. Some have to do with Russia and some don't have to do a lot with Russia. And so I think what he's doing is he's trying to marshal his resources, bring in in extra help where he needs it, and also to position himself so when he ultimately focuses on Russia or closes that part of it down, there'll be other prosecutors who can step in and see these investigations through to conclusion.
On one hand, it can't be good for the president just politically if this keeps going. Okay, the longer it goes, the more annoying it is for him, the more distraction it is, and there potentially charges down the road for any number of people. But on the other hand, if prosecutors are being brought in, as we heard from Catherine, that are dealing with other sidebars that are not about Russia collusion, can this help the president say, there's no collusion?
Well, I think it can in several ways. I think one point, as you may note, is that the president has consistently said, and so far Mueller hasn't shown his hand yet. He hasn't found any evidence linking the president himself to collusion. And I think the president could say, look, there's all this smoke, but where's the fire? You've had a year or more to look into this, and we still haven't seen anything. And the fact that Mueller has been able to bring indictments and charges against other people, but not against the president yet, at least creates the inference maybe he doesn't have anything quite yet.
Meanwhile, we still don't know whether or not Mueller's going to get an interview with the president of the United States, and whether, if he's denied one, he'll issue a subpoena. As you know better than anyone, if he were to issue a subpoena, it could go all the way to the Supreme Court. We have an announcement coming Monday. The next justice could be very quickly thrown in the soup, deciding, do I side with the president or not?
Absolutely. And look, I think you're absolutely right. If Mueller does take the road of subpoenaing the president, that is not something that's going to be resolved overnight. That is going to be a legal battle extraordinaire that very well could go up to the Supreme Court. If it does, my guess is that any justice Trump nominates may have to recuse, but I'm not entirely sure of that. That's going to be a quarrel for another day.
We're going to get into the short list in just a few moments. The short list today got a little shorter, but it'll be interesting whether it's Brett Kavanaugh or someone else, Amy Barrett. All of a sudden they'll be thrown right into the mix on this.
Absolutely.
It's going to be fascinating.
Absolutely.
Tom Dupree, appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Ed.
All right. The Department of Homeland Security, meanwhile, is touting a drop in border apprehensions after the administration implemented its zero-tolerance policy towards illegal immigrants trying to cross the border. Trace Gallagher has the latest from our L.A. newsroom. Good evening, Trace.
Ed, the Department of Homeland Security has released new numbers showing the zero-tolerance policy at the border appears to be working. For example, in May, 52,000 migrants were apprehended or turned away at the southwest border. But in June, after the zero-tolerance policy went into effect, the number dropped below 43,000. And that's the first time the numbers have been below 50,000 since back in February. Meantime, Health and Human Services is still working to reunite nearly 3,000 children who may have been separated from their parents. I say may have because it's well documented that many children brought into the U.S. came with people posing as their parents. So HHS is now checking DNA and criminal records. Here's the HHS secretary.
We have to confirm that the people claiming to be their parents are actually their parents. We also have to confirm that the parents are suitable for the children to be placed back with. That's what we do.
But the ACLU isn't buying that statement, saying, quote, when the government wants to marshal its resources to separate families, it has shown that it can do it quickly and efficiently. But when told to reunite families, it somehow finds it too difficult and cumbersome to accomplish. But despite those on the left criticizing border agents and calling to abolish immigration and customs enforcement, tonight at a campaign rally in Montana, the president said the Border Patrol and ICE are heroes.
If you want borders, how about borders? Wouldn't it be nice to have borders? And yes, we are already building the wall.
In an opinion piece for FoxNews.com, veteran Border Patrol agent Brandon Judd wrote that building the wall is the only humane and permanent solution to the crisis at the border, quoting, as long as people think they can cross the border illegally, they will continue to try. The journey is dangerous enough due to the natural conditions alone. Traveling hundreds or even thousands of miles on foot, often in extreme heat and without adequate water, is no easy trip for an adult, let alone for a child. He goes on to say human smugglers don't think twice before leaving illegal immigrants to die in locked trailers under the desert sun. And we should note this weekend alone, the Border Patrol rescued 64 migrants trapped in tractor trailers. They've rescued more than 400 people in the past 2 months. Ed.
Trace, thanks for that. The president also taking aim at the Statue of Liberty protester who wants to abolish ICE, who today said she was inspired, actually, by a former First Lady.
Michelle Obama our beloved First Lady that I care so much about said, when they go low, we go high, and I went as high as I could.
You saw that clown yesterday on the Statue of Liberty? You see the guys that went up there? I wouldn't have done it. I would have said, let's get some nets and let's wait till she comes down.
Oh my. Tonight's panel, here to weigh in, Mo Alithi, Fox News contributor, former communications director for the DNC. And Fox News contributor Guy Benson, who has a new radio show, Benson and Harf. It's great. You should check it out, by the way.
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Mo, I want to start with you because the woman there who scaled the Lady Liberty was quoting Michelle Obama, who I thought when she said it again and again on the campaign trail was talking about civility. Michelle Obama was saying, you know, they go low, we go high, we don't get petty. Aren't these protests getting petty?
Yeah, I don't think this is exactly what Michelle Obama had in mind when she said it. Look, the issue of family separation is a very potent issue for Democrats in this election. I think Democrats have both the political and the moral high ground on this issue. I think anything that Democrats do to distract from that message is just shooting themselves in the foot. Now, I don't think most Democrats are. I think most Democrats out there are actually very focused on the message. But, you know, scaling Lady Liberty, I think just it's the kind of distraction.
Well, I want to get Guy in here, but hang on a second. I haven't heard Chuck Schumer say, hey, Kirsten Gillibrand, cool this talk about abolishing ICE. To your point, I'm not hearing leadership in your party stand up.
You hear a lot. It's still a very small minority of Democrats out there who are calling for the abolition of ICE. If anything, you hear more Democrats right now saying, slow your roll, guys. Like, this isn't going to get us what we need, which is to get these families back together. I think talking about eliminating ICE is the kind of distraction from the bigger issue, which Democrats are actually scoring points on.
So Guy, Mo says that the family separation issue is potent for Democrats, but maybe this abolish ICE could be potent for Republicans.
Sure, and I don't think the Republicans could ask for anything better than protesters climbing up on the Statue of Liberty with a
on July 4th.
On July 4th with a T-shirt talking about health care policy and then climbing down and talking about abolishing ICE. That is what we would call off message in this business, and that's fine. Unfortunately, Mo, it is on message for a very significant and growing part of your party's base. And I think if they were to just focus on this one discrete issue, they'd probably be on much safer political ground, but they can't help themselves because it's a resistance off. They're all trying to outdo one another, and it seems like the latest litmus test is abolishing ICE. It's got traction, and party leadership is doing this dance where they don't want to endorse it. It's very unpopular, but the hardcore element of their base loves it.
Quick response from Mo.
Well, we'll see. I still think it's a very small minority, right? People kind of jumped, some people jumped on this after a very progressive candidate in a very progressive district won, with that being part of her platform. Most Democrats around the country that are in the trenches running this election are not talking about eliminating ICE.
What about Kamala Harris, who wants to run for president? She jumped on this right away.
She said, let's take a look at it. I think reforming ICE is a very smart and very safe place to be. Let's talk about the policies. Let's talk about the personnel. Let's talk about the practices at the border that we need to reform. But I don't think most are jumping on
All right, we started talking about civility. Listen to Hunter Richard. He's a teenager down in Texas who was wearing a Make America Great Again hat at a Whataburger. Watch.
I support my president. Even if you don't, like, let's have a conversation about it instead of, you know, ripping my hat off.
So you saw this video that's gone viral. This guy rips his hat off, throws some soda at him. Let's start with you, Guy. What in the world is happening right now?
I mean, it's bad behavior by one individual. I think we are seeing these incivility flare-ups perhaps becoming more frequent. There are allegations that maybe the kids may have said something racial that led to that. The bottom line is you do not put your hands on a political opponent, period, especially if that opponent is a kid, a 16-year-old high school student, throwing a drink in someone's face, ripping something off their head. That's not something anyone should defend.
And the police say they're investigating, so you make a good point that we don't know what happened before this viral video. Was something said? Was a punch thrown? Any number of things could have happened. Mo, To my question, though, about abolish ICE, when Maxine Waters said some days ago, let's make this really hard for Trump supporters, let's go after the cabinet. Why are more people not saying, you know what, that's not cool?
Nancy Pelosi came out and said, she disagreed with that. Look, Guy and I suspect are in a very similar place on this. That
get me in trouble.
Yeah, sorry about that. But look, I think we both believe that there needs to be more civility in our political discourse today. It is at what happened there, based on what we have seen so far, shouldn't have happened. Just as the violence that was taken against Democrats during the Obamacare fight in 2011.
Absolutely.
Or the Trump supporters who punched a protester at a Trump rally in 2016. We have been heading down a dangerous path of, we've always thrown sharp elbows in our politics.
We saw Steve Scalise
but it's getting
shot,
bad.
And kind of enough is enough. Get the temperature down.
That's right. Let's have the conversation. And it's okay to get angry in politics.
And fight it out.
Take it out at the ballot box.
Mo, Guy, appreciate you both coming in.
Thanks.
Sure thing.
When we return, if you've been following the heartbreaking story of those 12 boys and their soccer coach trapped in a cave in Thailand, there's actually some breaking news. Tragedy striking. There was a Navy SEAL from Thailand who just lost his life. We're going to break it down and talk about it next. Plus, the latest on Monday's big Supreme Court announcement as the president gets a once-in-a-generation chance at reshaping the high court. The short list just got shorter. We've got the inside scoop.
As you know, there's now a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And if you turn in Monday at 9 o'clock, I think you're going to be extremely happy with the selection, right?
And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo expected to arrive any time now in North Korea, working with Kim Jong-un on that agreement the president signed last month in Singapore. Is the rogue regime serious about denuclearization? Jillian Turner joins us with the breaking details. President Trump getting ready to reveal his next Supreme Court justice on Monday night. We're hearing who's on the short list and who's not, despite some input from the Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer. Kristen Fisher following the latest for us on another busy night of big developments. Good evening, Kristen.
Hey, good evening, Ed. Well, President Trump told reporters on board Air Force One tonight that his short list has shrunk to 4, and he thinks that he has it narrowed down to just 2 or 3 finalists. As for timing, he said that he hopes to have a decision by Sunday. Then on Monday, the big primetime announcement at the White House, something he made official during that rally tonight in Montana.
If you turn in Monday at 9 o'clock, I think you're going to be extremely happy with the selection, right?
As President Trump zeroes in on his second Supreme Court pick, sources say he's narrowed it down to 3 appellate court judges, all of whom are widely regarded to be constitutional conservatives. Brett Kavanaugh from the D.C. Circuit, the 6th Circuit's Raymond Kethledge, and Amy Coney Barrett of the 7th Circuit. Kavanaugh, spotted leaving his home this morning, is the steady Washington insider. The 53-year-old sits on the same powerful court that served as a stepping stone for 3 current Supreme Court justices, as well as the late Antonin Scalia. He clerked for retiring Justice Kennedy, and he has deep ties to his former boss, President George W. Bush. But some conservatives are trying to torpedo Kavanaugh's candidacy, pointing to his 2011 opinion that the court had no jurisdiction to decide the fate of the Obamacare individual mandate. Another former Kennedy clerk, Judge Raymond Kethledge. The 51-year-old is known for being a bit of a loner. He's less high profile and has less of a judicial record than Kavanaugh, but he's also a lot less controversial, which could help him get confirmed. And then there's Amy Coney Barrett, the only female finalist. She has 7 children, clerked for the late Justice Antonin Scalia, and is a devout Catholic. But her writings on overturning judicial precedent have raised a red flag with a critical Republican Senator, Susan Collins, who fears she might overturn Roe v. Wade. Tonight, President Trump thanked Justice Kennedy for stepping down when he did.
And he had confidence in me. He left because he said, you're going to pick somebody great.
But Democrats say no one on the president's shortlist is acceptable. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has privately urged the president to pick Judge Merrick Garland, who was first nominated by President Obama. Other Democrats are putting the pressure on 2 key Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins.
And one liberal group is planning to spend millions of dollars on advertising and activism in the senator's home states, Alaska and Maine. That is the same strategy that they used to help defeat the Republican effort to repeal Obamacare last year, Ed.
All right, Kristen Fisher, appreciate the details. America's top diplomat Mike Pompeo expected to arrive any time now in North Korea. where he hopes to fill in the details of the agreement that Kim Jong-un and the president signed last month during their historic summit, though there are concerns Kim may be backpedaling. Jillian Turner following the latest developments tonight. Good evening, Jillian.
Good evening, Ed. We thought that maybe Secretary Pompeo would have arrived already, but he's going to arrive in just a few moments, any moment now, in Pyongyang for his third face-to-face meeting with Kim Jong-un. He's set to spend the next 2 days meeting with the dictator and his top deputies, and then he's going to overnight in the Hermit Kingdom's capital for the first time.
We signed a wonderful paper saying they're going to denuclearize their whole thing. It's going to all happen.
President Trump highlighting ongoing negotiations tonight as the Secretary of State's landing in Pyongyang. Pompeo tweeting just a short while ago, "I spoke with POTUS while we were both in the air. The president told me he believes that Chairman Kim sees a different, brighter future for the people of North Korea. We both hope that's true." Now, with the hullabaloo of the historic Trump-Kim summit behind him, the State Department says Pompeo will drill down on the million-dollar question, the future of the denuclearization process.
We've had very clear conversations with them. There will be no surprises in terms of what we are asking them to do. Our policy remains the same today as it was going into the Singapore summit. So nothing in that regard has changed.
But this trip comes at a crucial moment when experts say the very future of the nuclear talks hangs in the balance. New intelligence reports this week indicate Kim may already be backtracking on the commitment he made to President Trump in June to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. Intel operatives are ringing alarm bells after a series of satellite images were leaked. They appear to show Kim's continuing to improve and build up his uranium enrichment facility at Yongbyon, as well as 2 other sites. But the president's national security advisor cautions this administration's not naive.
We've seen how the North Koreans have behaved before. The president's been very clear he's not going to make the mistakes of prior administrations. We're going to pursue this, and we'll see what happens.
Ever since the Trump-Kim summit, U.S. officials have been trying to nail down the details of an agreement, as well as a roadmap for the way forward. But national security sources tell Fox News the 2 sides haven't yet agreed on what denuclearization means. President Trump, though, is remaining optimistic, tweeting, "Many good conversations with North Korea. It is going well. In the meantime, no rocket launches or nuclear testing in 8 months. All of Asia is thrilled." In a statement released earlier tonight, Secretary Pompeo said both sides have already outlined what a, quote, transformed U.S.-DPRK relationship could look like. He also reiterated his mission on this trip is to continue to fill in the details and build momentum towards that future relationship. Ed.
Jillian Turner, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's official. The White House announcing it's hired Bill Shine, someone familiar to me and everyone here at Fox News. Shine was co-president of both the Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network. He will serve as assistant to the president and deputy chief of staff for communications. The White House statement says Shine brings over 2 decades of television programming, communications, and management experience to the role. A true fact, and personally, I wish him well. We are just moments away from a trade war with China. Details when we return. Plus tragedy in Thailand as the soccer team is still trapped in that flooded cave. Can the team be rescued before the next round of heavy rains coming this weekend? Joining us is Dave Sears, a former U.S. Navy SEAL. Time now for Where in the World, and we've got some big news. In less than 30 minutes, unless there's a last-minute reprieve, the U.S. will impose $34 billion in tariffs on imported Chinese machinery, auto parts, and medical devices. China says it will respond immediately to what they call equivalent tariffs on U.S. products, including cheese, corn, soybeans, and sport utility vehicles. In total, the U.S. tariffs will cover 818 categories of products from China, and China will place tariffs on 545 categories of U.S. products. While this has driven considerable concern in the heartland and the free trade wing of the Republican Party, economists from think tanks associated with organized labor say the threat is a bit overblown.
The cost is not going to be as large as some people think. We're talking about essentially tariffs of 10 to 25% on perhaps $50 to $100 billion worth of imports. That's a tiny fraction of the overall U.S. economy, less than 0.1%.
Meanwhile, another surprise from Mexico's leftist president-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He says he will invite President Trump to his December 1st inauguration. Obrador touting Mexico's bond of friendship with the United States. He says he wants to broker a deal with Mr. Trump under which the U.S. helps economic development in Mexico and Central America, and Mexico works to reduce northern migration. We'll see if there's the art of the deal. This is a Fox News alert. A very serious story with a former Thai Navy SEAL has now died working to rescue boys trapped in a cave. The rescuer was working in a volunteer capacity. He died during an overnight mission in which he was placing oxygen canisters. Thai authorities are now racing to pump out water from a flooded cave where those 12 boys and their soccer coach have been trapped since June 23rd. Rescuers are in a race against not just time, but the weather. Monsoon rains are about to strike again. Let's turn to Dave Sears. He's a former Navy SEAL specializing in underwater operations. Obviously, that's what Navy SEALs do. Dave, first of all, talk about this breaking development tonight about this former Navy SEAL going in to help. He clearly, you would expect, had real experience, and yet he died.
Absolutely. So it's all hands on deck, 24/7, trying to get these kids out, pumping water. What he's doing is he's trying to pre-stage canisters of oxygen or air so that they can get the kids out either on a fixed line, or if they need to dive them, they have reserve air as they go. He died doing that. This is such a dangerous event, doing the diving in a cave, small confined spaces, dark, murky waters, that even somebody very experienced, you just saw, lost their life.
And it's dark, very little visibility. We understand since some rescuers got to them to try to get them out, they've gotten some food and water that have kept them going, but we're reaching a critical stage.
We are. So you're starting to get to plan A's to try and get enough water out of the caves so that they can walk the majority of the portion out. Problem is they're so malnourished and everything. Do they have the strength to go this 5 kilometers or so? They need to go through rocks and under things. Wow. Plan B is try and dive them, walk them for a portion if they can while the waters are low. Plan C seems to be wait 4 months for monsoon season to end. They stay in the cave with all their supplies, and then they walk out 4 months later.
So hang on. So first of all, monsoon season, as I understand it, is supposed to be there this weekend.
Yes.
And once that happens, the rains are just going to be so intense that they're not going to be able to get out of the cave.
Yep, tropical, it's jungle weather that happens, and it just goes non-stop rain. I mean,
now
you're probably not going to get another window.
Right. Now, we were investigating previous incidents, and there was that mining incident in Chile in 2010. And 33 Chilean mine workers were trapped underground, and they were actually rescued after 69 days. So maybe you could survive for a couple months, but in that case, as you told me off air, you know, food and water was brought down to them. Whether or not in the middle of a monsoon you can get more food and water to these boys is really an open question.
What they've said is they've already staged 4 months plus of food supply and water there. So that's what they've been doing in these days now.
That could potentially get them through a monsoon then.
That could get them through, yeah. They're confident that they could actually last through. My only question would be, do the waters rise too high, or do they run out of actual air, usable air in there? So what's that look like? There's still a large cave system behind them a little bit, but that's also under some water. So they do believe that they could have a high probability of living through the 4 months.
So there has been hope in recent days that, you know, in the early stages they've survived.
Right.
You seem to think, as I talk to you off the air, that you're starting to lose hope that they can really make it.
I think that I would lose hope on this diving portion starting to come. So plan A or plan B, them walking, unless they get a lot more water out of there and walk them out, I think you're starting to look at this 4 months wait in the cave, monsoon season, and then all the complexity goes with that. Do you have a cave collapse? Is there more water that comes in? So there's a whole lot of other issues. So obviously our hope's up and our prayers are with them, but
it's difficult.
It's difficult.
So
we're not out of the woods.
Plan C, Plan D. Is there anything else they could do?
They're talking about drilling as well. So some people have weighed in, from Elon Musk to others, saying they could bring in drilling equipment. The problem is, and what I've heard, is that it's like hitting a needle in a haystack.
Right.
So how do you find that small pocket where they are, another pocket, drill the exact depth down? It's pretty far down. So I think they said almost like 3,000 feet or something like that, close.
It's pretty intense.
So it's pretty hard. That's another very non-viable option.
All right, Dave Sears, we appreciate your insight, and we obviously wish the best. As you said, we're all thinking and praying for them tonight.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, when we return, another former Ohio State wrestler says that Congressman Jim Jordan knew about sexual abuse when the congressman was an assistant coach at the university. Stick around for the latest and the response to all of these allegations with Chad Pergram next. This is a Fox News alert. The plot is thickening tonight on Capitol Hill, where Capitol police officials are now looking at emails sent to Congressman Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio. Remember, he's a former coach of the Ohio State wrestling team. Tonight, another former wrestler from that team is reportedly claiming that Jordan is not being truthful when he says he did not know the team doctor was sexually abusing athletes. Here is what Jordan is saying about it all.
All I can do is tell the truth, and you know, we've said that we're happy to sit down with the firm doing the investigation. As I said, though, I find it interesting that they can't find a congressman's email address. They can't tell us who they talked to when they supposedly called our office, but yet they can go tell the press that they reached out to us and we didn't respond. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Okay, so he's talking about the emails there. Senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram is here to break it down. But first of all, I mean, obviously these kind of accusations are very serious. And I wonder, though, on the substance of it, what is Jim Jordan saying? Because you now have a fourth wrestler, Sean Daly, saying he was groped by the team doctor, and that basically they talked to Jim Jordan about it and he didn't do anything.
Yeah, and Jim Jordan and his office have been denying this all the way through. What we do have here are these emails now from Mike DeSabato, who, you know, wrestled under Jim Jordan back at Ohio State. And there's a couple of things. I talked to Mike DeSabato tonight, and he said the reason he started to send these emails, and if you read through the emails, Ed, they're peppered with emojis. The prose is very hard to understand. But he said, I want to reach out to someone like Jim Jordan, who's in a high-profile position.
Now, in the present time.
Right. And he started to do this in March, followed up in May and June and so on and so forth, and saying he's in a high-profile position. He needs to lead. In one email, he called him Reverend James. He says he has this squeaky clean image. He wants to be the Speaker of the House, and if he's not, he needs to cut through, his words, the Ohio State BS.
So they're saying, speak out now. But what evidence, if any, is there that Jim Jordan knew or didn't know years ago in the 90s that this sexual abuse was going on? Is there any evidence?
There isn't, and that's the problem. You know, how do you go back 25 or 30 years and say, I don't know that I knew something 25 or 30 years ago, and let alone how do I prove this? And this is this sort of Damocles that hangs over Jim Jordan, who has made, you know, very clear that he wants to run for leadership next year.
Could be the next Speaker of the House.
That's right. That's right. And certainly if Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise, there could be recriminations there. If they lose the majority, you don't know how the leadership
race. He's denied wrongdoing. We don't know of any evidence that proves that he knew about this sexual abuse, but also, you know, innocent until proven guilty, but we don't know if other evidence will emerge. Is there any hint in the emails, I know it's early in the investigation, that this person out there was trying to blackmail Jim Jordan or suggesting you have some problem here, we're going to expose it? What was the nature of it?
He was basically taking advantage of what Jim Jordan's position was, saying you were someone at Ohio State at the time that this was going on. And if you look at who was copied on some of these emails, they were sent to Jim Jordan. One of the emails I looked at was sent to Russ Hellickson, who's was the wrestling coach there, the head coach, sent to Archie Griffin, the two-time Heisman Trophy winner, Oliver Luck, the father of Andrew Luck, who's an NCAA
So
official.
they were going to prominent people.
Yes.
Like, this is a big deal. Bottom line, there are a lot of people around Jim Jordan who believe, you know, he's been going after the FBI. He's going after the Justice Department. He's demanding answers in the Trump and Clinton investigations. Hinting, again, we don't have evidence of this either, but that maybe someone somewhere is trying to get back at him.
And Jordan has used that narrative. But, you know, when you look for some, you know, smoking gun that directly connects those things, there's nothing. What you could be having here is that Jim Jordan's star is ascending because he wants to move up in the leadership. He's someone who's been very vocal on the issue of the FBI and Rod Rosenstein and what they knew at DOJ. And so when that happens, you know, you get a bigger target on your back. And if you have this sort of Damocles hanging over you that nobody can prove or disprove, well, that could undercut you in a potential leadership race.
Right. But again, no evidence that he did anything wrong, but it's something you expect. We've got 15 seconds. He's going to have a news conference. He's going to have to explain any of this, or what's the next move for the Jordan
This will heat up big time when they come back to session next week. Congress is out until Tuesday. The House comes back next Tuesday, and that's when this will really get big, because then we'll know.
Chad Pergram, thanks for the facts tonight.
Thank you.
All right, when we return, right out of a spy novel, British authorities blaming Russia for the latest poison attacks. Russia denies it. Many unanswered questions. Benjamin Hall is looking for the answers. He joins us next. Another twist in the case of a couple in Britain who have been poisoned from a nerve agent developed in Russia. Investigators are now saying the couple fell ill as a result of the March attack on a former Russian spy and his daughter, and that it was not intentional. Benjamin Hall reports from London tonight.
2 British citizens are now in critical condition after falling victim to Novichok, the same Soviet nerve agent that nearly killed Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter 4 months ago. Dawn Sturgis and Charlie Rowley were found collapsed at a residential building 8 miles from where the Skripals were found. Police say there was nothing in their background to suggest they were targeted. Now, authorities have cordoned off 6 sites the couple visited before becoming sick and are working on the assumption that they came into contact with Novichok left over from the previous attack. Today, British Prime Minister Theresa May was briefed by the security services and the counter-terrorism police.
To see 2 more people exposed to the Novichok in the UK is obviously deeply disturbing, and the police, I know, will be leaving no stone unturned.
Authorities say the nerve agent was the same variety as that used against the Skripals, though it's not clear whether the 2 samples came from the same batch, and finding it could be hard. The UK has also called on Moscow to provide information on the Skripal case, though Russia continues to deny involvement and accused the UK of dirty political games.
We are calling on the government of British Prime Minister Theresa May to stop these intrigues and playing games with chemical agents.
According to reports, the Russian spy and his daughter are both now recovering well at an undisclosed location. But this new poisoning will serve as a reminder of the aggressive actions taken by Russia in the UK, just 1 week before President Trump attends a NATO summit to discuss, in part, Russian aggression. And remember, 4 months ago, after the Skripal case, President Trump made the decision to expel 60 Russian diplomats from the US as part of 100 diplomats who were expelled by other Western nations. That was the largest ever expulsion of Russian diplomats since the height of the Cold War. And in just a week and a half, President Trump will meet with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, and you've got to imagine that that will now be near the top of the agenda. Ed?
That's right. A busy agenda indeed. Just got a little bit bigger. Benjamin, thank you. Most watched, most trusted, most grateful you spent the evening with us. I'm Ed Henry in Washington. I'll be back for Shannon and the Bream team tomorrow night as well. Join us on Friday. We'd love to see you. Good night from Washington. I'm Ed Henry.